And this is Jen Gray, and welcome to Be Jennuine Podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower. Welcome to the stage, Jen Gray. All right, friends, one quick thing before we jump in today's episode. I am so crazy excited to shout from the rooftops. Our podcast partners, our first partner is Dr. John D. Ambrosio. He is the owner, CEO, mastermind behind the Center for Life Enhancement. If you are anywhere within driving distance of Atlanta, Georgia, or you want to hop in an airplane, it's legitimately worth it. He helps people achieve optimal health and function through a unique whole body approach to chiropractic care. At the Center for Life Enhancement, he utilizes wellness stacking, combining biocharger, gentle yet precise chiropractic adjustments, zone technique and cranial release, and brain tap to restore balance and enhance the body's natural ability to heal. His focus is on optimizing function, helping clients move, feel, and live better every day. Hey friends, it's Jen Gray, your host of Be Jennuine Podcast, and I am super excited for today's episode. I have a very special guest I cannot wait for you guys to hear from, learn from, and we're definitely going to grow from. So let me introduce her so she can hop on in. I'm thrilled to welcome Lori Gouhin, a powerhouse of creativity, strategy, and inspiration. Lori is the founder and CEO of The Artwork of You, a dynamic platform where she helps individuals unlock their potential as a mindset and goal strategy coach and mentor. Not only is she an internationally selling contemporary abstract artist, but she's also the host of the Artwork of You podcast, where she empowers listeners to embrace their individuality and design a life they love. Lori is here to share her wisdom on goal setting, personal vision, and what it truly means to become the most unique version of yourself. Get ready for a super inspiring conversation. Hi, Lori.
Hi. Well, that was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. I am super excited for this convo. Love that life brought us together. We've never met in person, but we've done a lot of life together in the last year, which I think is the power of the internet. I know social media has a bad rap, but I'm super thankful that it brought us together. But I would love for you to start wherever you see fit and share your story. I'd love to see how your life intersected with the idea of authenticity and what you've done, where you've come from, and where you're going.
All right. Well, I'll start with the basics. I've been married for 32 years. I have 3 grown daughters. The youngest is a sophomore in college. And for way back when, I was a teacher. I taught elementary school and then spent the majority of my adult life as a stay-at-home mom and a homeschooling mom. And then when I was around 50 and my kids were a bit older, I decided that I really wanted to embrace my creativity and really start doing something for myself outside of being a wife and a mom. And that's when I started painting, and little did I know it was going to lead into a career in a business, but I just really loved it, embraced it, and people, when I shared it, they started to love it as well. And so that was about 6 years ago. And I also was certified as a life coach from way back when, well over a decade ago. And I never really left that desire to be a coach. I had put it on the back burner, but I always really was still coaching people, right? Not as a business, but just still helping people. It's in my soul. And so although I was building my career as an artist, as I said, that desire never really left. And I tried to find a way to kind of combine the two without seeming like the coaching was coming out of left field, because I really did not see myself coaching artists to be a better artist. In business, yes, but not really technically as an artist. And I didn't want to confuse people. And so that's when I came up with the idea of the artwork of you, because I truly do believe we are the artwork in our life. And I wanted to encourage people to show up like the masterpiece they are. I started the podcast and the coaching business, and that was back in 2023. The podcast started at the end of 2023, November of 2023. So it's just been a year.
I love that. So many things. So first of all, had you always been interested in art, but you just never dabbled in the abstract art? So how did, just 6 years ago, because y'all, you have to check out her stuff. She's so good. Your stuff is incredible. So the fact that you just picked it up as a little hobby, is that just how it came about?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what happened. I've always, I'd say, been a creative person in different ways. And I just was drawn to painting. I was drawn to abstract. I like it to say because I'm very abstract. My brain works very abstract. I've been, drawn to abstract work. So I just tried my hand at it. And, I just practiced and practiced and I got better and better. Yeah, no formal education, nothing. And that was tough in the beginning because I had all those limiting beliefs that we have when we're, putting ourselves out there for the first time, especially if I didn't have credentials to back me up. And, it's very vulnerable, but it worked out.
I love that's what I was
Not
going to ask
easy,
you
but
about.
simple.
Yeah, because I can only imagine it's kind of like in the speaking space, right? You compare yourself. Well, it's another thing to be labeled an artist because that's almost like you earn your stripes, right? You earn your way into that world. And it's a very uppity type of culture, right? I mean, there's a lot of respect for artists who've been in that. And so for you to find a passion, jump all in, and then be willing to bet on yourself and show up in rooms and show up in ways that you probably had tons of limiting beliefs. I can only imagine the imposter syndrome of showing up. So what was it like to put your first piece out there and put a price tag on it? What was that process like?
That's tough. And, I think the same is for a lot of new artists. Pricing your work is really a big struggle point. And so for me, I had to figure out what were those limiting beliefs. Why was I hesitating? Because I first started just kind of having the work around my home and people would come over and they'd say, did you, that's nice or whatever, but no big deal. And then I would maybe put a piece on Facebook and of course people were supportive. They were my friends and family at the time. I wasn't in business. And you don't know, are they really being genuine with their compliments or are they just being supportive? And eventually people started asking if I was selling, but I was always like, oh, no, nothing's for sale. And then about a little while later, we were building a new home. So then I would say, oh, no, I'm just painting for our new home. And I just really had to examine, people are asking for it. Why aren't you putting it out there? Why was I hesitating? And what I found out, it was really very basic. I thought, well, real artists use better materials than I'm using because I was at the time still using pretty much student grade stuff. And I thought, okay, well, that's an easy fix. So I wanted to use better canvases, better paint brushes, better quality paints. I can do that, right? That's easy. I don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. I can just, start there with a little bit. So I did that. And then I also thought, well, a real artist would have a website, right? Somewhere to put people can go and look at the work. And I chose to be independent. I chose not to go into galleries initially. And so anyway, yeah, I fixed those two things and I put up a website and I put pricing. I put pricing on there that felt like a no-brainer to me. Pricing that I'd still feel good about if someone bought it. I wouldn't feel like it was giving giving away my work, but at the same time, that when somebody received it in the mail that they would feel like that I was over delivering, right? That they got a really nice quality piece of work for a very low price. And yeah, it took 6 months. So, it's funny, all the people encouraging me and saying they were interested. And then I put it all out there in crickets, right? But I just had to keep that mindset of just keep going. Eventually someone will buy. And if they don't, then I'm creating a collection for myself. But, really had to just believe in myself. And 6 months later, someone bought and that was amazing.
I love that. And I think every success story has that lull, right? It has that bit of silence. And that's where you genuinely build yourself. Either you do what 98% of the people do and you give up in that time, right? It's like the story of, when they were looking for gold, right? They dug. They were 3 feet away from gold. And had they just not given up, they would have reached their whole treasure. But they did. And therefore, everything felt like it was totally lost. And so it's one of my cliche statements is that the only way you fail is if you give up. But it's so true because had you let the limiting beliefs lower you, had you given into that mentality, you would have never experienced the feeling. I can only imagine because I can go back to like the first time I was paid to speak. I was like, it's like I knew I was worth that, but you just have to keep showing up and then it's going to attract and it's going to happen. And so that feeling inside of somebody just paid me for my work It's
Yeah, it was amazing, right? Yeah, and I
love
can
that.
remember the first time I told someone that I was an artist, right? When
Mm,
people, you're out and about and you're meeting people, I said, and at the time I hadn't sold anything yet, and I
mm.
hadn't, there was nothing, right? I was just like, yeah, I'm an artist, and I had an Instagram account, but and the more I kept saying it, the more I believed it. And then in turn, of course, others will believe it, especially people that had never met me before. I'm introducing myself for the first time as an artist. And, I encourage people, the more you embrace that identity, right? It's always the who before the how. You just have to embrace that identity and you'll start to believe it, and other people will as well.
Okay, that was a lot of nuggets of wisdom right there. I love that. I mean, that applies. It doesn't matter what lane that you're in. Owning that and stepping into that. And again, I hate the saying fake it till you make it, because you're not faking it till you make it. You're
No,
owning it and you are becoming it. It's you are
exactly.
speaking and you are becoming the person who has their artwork be sold. You are becoming the person who gets paid for your services versus just giving it away for free. Maybe it's you open an Etsy shop, right? And it's you've decided that you are putting yourself out there and owning the fact that you are valuable enough to make money on what you're passionate about. And I absolutely love that. So transitioning that world and that mentality in from becoming an artist into becoming the other side of you being an artist, which is creating and reminding people that, like you just said, they have the masterpiece within them. How did that get started? What does that look like? How do you, who's your ideal client? Like what's the type of person that you are working with, and being able to show them how they can create a life with using a lot of principles that you've already shared today, and create a life that they're actually proud to live?
Yeah, well, people always say the niche down, right? Pick, really find your lane. And for me, I definitely have a broad niche because I'm really just about mindset and goal strategy. And it doesn't really matter the goal, right? It's because the framework is generally the same. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to create a business, if you are trying to create a better relationship with your partner or with your family, if you are trying to lose weight, it doesn't really matter, right? Anything on that wheel of life, any goals that you have or targets that you have within that, the framework's basically the same. And so my ideal client is really just someone who's ready to take action, right? And generally, they're lacking clarity on what to do next, and they're really lacking the ability to hold themselves accountable.
Mm.
So when I work with clients, accountability is such a big part of it. And I know people sometimes they kind of shy away from that because they don't really believe in themselves to do the work. And the thought of somebody holding them accountable is scary, especially if they have a lot of limiting beliefs that they haven't worked through. They know deep down they're not going to want to do certain things and they don't want to be held accountable to that. So, initially we work through all of that. And as I said, accountability is a big part until they learn to hold themselves accountable. So back to my ideal client, it's really someone who's willing to do the work and ready to take action. They've had these goals or these dreams or these targets on the back burner for long enough, and now they're finally ready. And they want somebody to hold themselves accountable, even if it's scary.
I love that. I think it's so powerful when we actually keep the promises that we make to ourselves. And I think that's why we ultimately are scared of accountability, because we know even with our own selves, when we say, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and go to the gym. And then what happens? You snooze and you're like, there I go again. And we create these patterns where we never expect ourselves to actually do what we say we're going to do. And so then deciding, I can't control what I did yesterday. I can't control the last 30 years of habits. What I can control is right now. And I'm deciding to show up different. I think that's what's powerful about having someone like you in your life, to be able to help you bust out of that regular life that you've been living, where you aren't saying yes to your goals. You are so used to failing yourself. You have no idea what it looks like to actually show up for yourself. And to have that extra voice is so powerful if we can get our pride and our ego aside and be willing to be vulnerable and showing up in that way. So, I mean, there's tons of, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And when you said, I love that you said when we keep the commitments that we make to ourselves, because really that's how confidence grows. Every time you keep those commitments, whether they're very tiny little micro goals or habits, or they're the big things, each one compounds and your confidence builds from there. And, that's half the battle, right? Being confident enough to take that action. But you're also right in that we go on autopilot a lot of the times. We have been living our lives on autopilot. We've reached the end of the day. We're like, where did the day go? The end of the week, where did the week go? The end of the year, well, geez, I didn't get nearly as much as accomplished as I had hoped. And that's where accountability really does help. And it's not that we can't hold ourselves accountable. We're just not used to it. And once we get into that pattern, and one thing that really helps me, I've been talking about it a lot, is just a tracker, because my brain is very abstract random and I get distracted very easily. I'm the type of, like one time I had 84 tabs open on my computer. It's crazy. But so a tracker, just where I write down those lists of daily goals that I want to accomplish, or weekly things, and I can just check them off. It just really helps keep me on track because I know it's written right there and I see it where I put it, where I can see it throughout the day. And if I see things on there that I did not check off, it doesn't feel good. And I know that I will feel so much better if I just do it. And when I don't have that there, sometimes I don't even remember the things I was supposed to do for the day because I'm just all over the place and distracted.
Right. Oh, and I think that again, success is built in those fine small details, right? It may sound silly. Oh, Lori, you put a Post-it note or you set a list on your phone and you track it. And that may sound so small, but that's the difference in success in the top 2%, right? I mean, it's in those fine details of taking notice daily of where you want to go and know that it's those little bitty decisions that you're making that are ultimately going to create something new. It's not these big, huge, massive discipline changes. It's a lot of times found in the mundane. So I love that. That's so good.
Absolutely. And a lot of times I think people put things down that they want that are too big initially. And by that, I don't mean that you can't accomplish big things. I mean, the little things that are going to take to reach that, right? And they might say, okay, I'm going to lose 10 pounds this week, or I'm going to create a course this week, or I'm going to get X amount of social media followers this month. First, you have to differentiate between what's a target and what's a goal, right? I like to think of it, and I tell my clients the targets are great. We need them as well, but we don't really have as much control over them. And a target would be something like getting X amount of followers or making X amount of money, right? But what we can control are the daily, weekly, and monthly goals that we do. I like to think of goals as something you either do it or you don't, right? So if you want to make more money, and that's what you're coming to coaching for, we decide, okay, how much money do you want to make and when do you want to make it by? And you work backwards. What are the things that you're going to need to do daily, weekly, and monthly to increase your income? And those are the goals. Those are the things that you write down. Those are the things that every day you either do them or you don't do them. And if you're not doing them, you have less and less of a chance to reach that target. If you are doing them, you set yourself up for success to meet that target. And then again, that's where accountability comes in and a good coach, because they'll hold you accountable and they'll help you create a strategy and a plan that you believe in, right? And going back to what I said about people put down things that are too big that they're ultimately not going to do. Either they don't have the time to do them, or they haven't worked through the things to be able to do them. So you want to create a plan that's believable and doable, that you're confident in, and that way you'll execute every single day.
Right. I think that's so huge. All right, friends, we still have a lot of goodness to dive into, but really quick, I want to interrupt our convo to let you guys know about our next podcast partner. It's Alpha and Omega Automotive. If you are anywhere near Atlanta, this is another great find. As a single mom, one of my biggest needs is to make sure I have an auto repair shop I can trust. And these guys are your first and last stop for automotive repair, standing for quality, honesty, and integrity. With over 25 years in business, their family-owned business offers trusted service at 2 convenient locations. Whether you need routine maintenance or major repairs, they've built a reputation for delivering reliable professional service. Come see why customers rely on them for all of their automotive needs, because with Alpha and Omega, you are always treated like family. I think it's why resolutions and goals get a bad rap, right? Because like what you just said, we come up with targets, But what we're missing is actually the tangible daily goals that are going to get us there. And just even like with working out, I mean, it was funny. Somebody posted, they said, would you rather run 5 miles a day, cut out all your carbs, and do weightlifting? And it was like multiple choices, and all of them were hard, but all of them were going to get you to the path of losing 15 pounds in a month. Right. And just knowing that there's multiple ways and lanes of choosing hard, but we can't just focus on the target. Having someone like you that helps, really dive that down. So how did you come to, is there any training, or is it just life for you that taught you like goal? Because there's a million bajillion life coaches, right? But you're not like everybody else. And I love that about you. And a lot of your focus is on being that partner in business and being that accountability and really breaking down goals. How or why did that become a focus? Is there some part of your own world and your own journey that you saw that was the pivot for you? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What is that they say? You're helping yourself in essence, right? So it only felt natural for me to coach and teach others on what works for me. That way I know that those are my people, right? And because I am very abstract by nature, having that having that focus, that directed, like, do this, then do this, then do this, I work so well with that. And then I tie in my creative side by helping, because a lot of times people think creativity means art, right? Or writing or painting or those kind of things. But it really, creativity is in all aspects of our life. So I teach people, or I show people, or I help people how to think creatively to plan that strategy that's going to work for them, because that's how I learn best. And that's how I've noticed that I achieve my goals. Like, for example, when I started my podcast, I wanted to start a podcast 10 years ago, back when it was, or more than 10 years ago. It was back when it was Blog Talk Radio. Podcasting wasn't even necessarily a thing. And it was right when I got my life coaching certification. I did a couple of interviews and then let all my limiting beliefs take over, and again, put that on the back burner. So it was always there, right? I wanted a podcast, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And what I realized was, it was so silly. It was stupid things like, well, I don't know how to edit like the intro and the outro music. I don't know how to, little things like that. And I thought, you know what? I can find somebody to help me do that. I can hire an editor, and she can show me, or she can do it for me. And so that's what I did, right? I hired an editor for not a lot of money, and they did that for me. And within 30 days, the podcast was up and running. So, sometimes it's just those little, like, we put things on hold for so long, and they're little easy fixes, but we don't even explore that. Right. And then having somebody like an editor helps keep me accountable, because I know that I prepay her every 2 months, and she's waiting for my show every week. And if I don't send it, she's not going to edit it. And then I'm going to miss a week, and I've already paid. So again, even somebody like an editor can help with that accountability. And now I forget the question that you even asked.
No. I absolutely, we have talked about like, why do you talk about goals? Like, why is that direction of, what you do? But no, I love that. Because another thing I always talk about is messy action. And you did exactly that. Messy action doesn't mean that you aren't worried about the excellence of what you're doing. It just means that you start before everything makes sense. Like, you may not have this perfect podcasting studio in order to start a podcast. But what's more important, the audiovisual quality? That is important. It is making the list. Or is it your messaging? Right. And so people care way less about some of these details that we're using as excuses, instead of like what you did. You're like, instead of going and studying how to video edit, I'm just going to find my resources around me and hire someone to fill in the gaps that I can't do, instead of using all of that energy to put it into starting a podcast. Now, somebody else, like for me, I went and figured out how I could make my own Canva introduction. And then I have a very low edited podcast, right? So it's two separate things. Both of us just got started. And the facts were, the goal was to get our message out there. So if someone else has that as their goal, then let's go, or that's your target, then let's break that down and let's get you live and let's get you a podcast started, instead of you continuing to let everything stay on the back burner. And I think that's amazing that you provide that for people. It's like, let's get those dreams and goals out of here, and let's like put them in place and put them in motion.
Right. And let's find your unique path because, as you said earlier, with the weight loss example, there's, 10 different ways to reach the same target or the same goal. And so you really want to flesh out what's what's believable for you. What are you confident that you would actually do? What's going to feel better for you? Because all the ways aren't the right ways for everybody. And having a good coach will help you flesh that out because sometimes we don't even know the questions to ask ourselves. We need someone else to ask those questions to make us really get it out of our brain and into the world.
Right. Well, and I just will use a very personal example. So Lori and I were on a call and I was frustrated about what path I was taking to market and grow my business. And I'm like, I'm sending these emails and I don't feel like, and then I'm cold calling and it just doesn't feel like me, but I know that I have to do things uncomfortable to do it. And then what did you say? You said, Jen, you clearly are okay on video. Like, what if you use what you're good at to market to the people that you want to connect with and do something that feels unique to you and it is in your wheelhouse? Again, it may sound simple, but those are the kind of things that will, because when we have in our mind, this is how we're supposed to do it, but it doesn't align with how we're creatively gifted. And like you said, that doesn't mean artistically. That means how we're uniquely gifted to connect with people. It's going to look different. And so the fact that you bring the creative element where you're not having this paintbrush that everyone's stroke's going to look the same and you're not in to put people into boxes. You're here to release them and to allow them to live a life and create a life that is even build the way that they're building a life is unique to them. So that's why I absolutely love it.
So it's uniquely them. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and in fact, I talk about it on my podcast this week, talking about my businesses, my art business, my coaching business, and my podcast. And he was saying about maybe focusing on just one because it's really hard to grow two unrelated businesses at the same time. And, he's quote unquote an expert and I value his opinion, but I really had to think long and hard about that. And ultimately, I thought, no, I want to grow both. I'm vested into this. These are not just businesses. They're part of who I am. They're what I want to create in the world. And there's a way, and it doesn't have to be like everyone else's way, right? And I want to create my bucket list businesses, is what I said, because why would I want to build something doing things I don't like you cold calling or emailing, things that really don't resonate or feel well because people say that's the way to do it. I have certain ways that I want to grow my businesses. And if it takes longer, that's okay because I want to grow them and build them doing things that genuinely feel authentic to me and that I love doing so that they're sustainable, right? Because the last thing you want to do is build a successful business doing things you hate.
Exactly. And what's the goal of any type of successful business is duplicatability. And so if I'm doing something that I don't love and I'm passing that down and I'm saying, this is how we build a business. And I think some of that too is just even being okay with not having all of the answers and being okay with just trying and pivoting. And if you don't like it, being like, perfect, I can still do the same industry, but I'm going to build it in a different kind of way. And giving yourself that freedom is so, so, so powerful. And it was freeing for me. I mean, it's like I'm shouting from the rooftops, be genuine. And yet this part of my world, I still had such a cookie cutter mentality that I wasn't even letting myself have that creative freedom. And so you brought such this light bulb moment of, okay, Jen, you can build all of the areas of your life in a way that aligns with who you are and the uniqueness of what you bring to the table. So talk more about your podcast. It's like one of your favorite episodes? What did you talk about? Was it an interview or was it a solo episode?
Well, most of my podcasts are solo episodes, right? And they're short. They're anywhere from, say, 8 to 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. And I would say one that really stands out to me was one of the earlier ones. And it actually might be my most downloaded episode. It's one of the earlier ones and it's on self-worth. And I told a very vulnerable story on that episode. And just briefly, I was at an event and there was a woman that was going to be at the event her name's Heather Monahan. So she's very big in the personal development world. She wrote a book called The Confidence Creator, which really helped me when I was putting my artwork out there. I relied on a lot of the stories that she told in that book when nobody was buying for those first 6 months. Just doesn't matter, put it out there. And, post something and just put my phone away or close my laptop and whatever. So anyway, I messaged her. I think that's what happened. I messaged her on Instagram and told her that I bought the book and how it was really helping me. And she responded and she asked me to write a review on Amazon, and I did. And we just kind of went back and forth throughout the year. This had been a couple of years, of various things. Like I would reach out to her if I thought something that might be beneficial to her. And she found a branding person because of somebody I recommended, whatever. It's like we had this kind of online friendship. Mm-hmm. So I thought. And so when I found out she was going to this event, a very small event, I was so excited to meet her, and I brought my book so she could autograph it. And she was there, and I went up to her and I was like, Heather, hey, whatever. And she clearly had no idea who I was. Absolutely no idea. She didn't recognize me. She didn't, whatever. And so I briefly was like, oh, I'm Lori, I'm the artist, oh yeah. But I still felt like she didn't know who I was. And she signed my book, and I just felt so dejected, and I wasn't really sure why. I didn't know in that moment what was happening. And for the rest of the event, the rest of the afternoon, I just kind of sat there really, what's the word? I was just like, that was my focus. I wasn't even near, like, really paying attention, because I was just like, and I was trying to figure out, like, what is this feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And I really wasn't sure what it. And after she spoke at the event, I kind of remembered why I was friendly with her in the first place. She was so funny and really gave a lot of valuable information. And, afterwards, people were going up and getting their photo taken with her and the other guest speaker. And I was like, no, I don't want my photo taken with her. I was so like, not who I typically am.
Right.
And then she looked over at me. She's like, Lori, let's get a photo. And I was like, all right, and we did. And it was great. And when I came home, it took a couple of days. And then I was like, it hit me. I was like, I felt unworthy. All the personal growth and development that I had gone through, all the coach training, everything that I thought I had worked through. You could have asked me any day of the week, do you have self-worth issues? And I would have said, no, absolutely not. I've worked through all that. And it was like, boom, I still had it. And I felt unworthy, like unworthy of being remembered, unworthy of being a friend, unworthy of like she was up here, I was down there. And so I spoke about that on the podcast. So I'd say that one really sticks out because it was very vulnerable. And I did reach out to her, and I shared that story with her, and she was so kind and genuine, and really appreciated that vulnerability on my part.
I love that. Again, one of my favorite statements is vulnerability builds bridges. And I would say the same thing about any podcast episode where you connect with a part of your story that someone else can resonate with, right? Like I have very similar situations in my own world, different people, but I can absolutely relate. And so whenever we have the courage to show up as our authentic self, I believe that's absolutely what brings us around people who need what we have and who align with where we're going. And I love that, because if there's anything that we don't know that we're struggling with self-worth until, like you just said, that until then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, my worth right now is being defined by what that person thinks of me or with the value they place on me. And to put that into check, and even to allow yourself to come full circle in that is pretty amazing. So, okay. So speaking of people who inspire you, who currently is inspiring you, or is there a book that you're reading or a podcast that you're listening to? What's growing you right now?
Oh gosh, so many things. I'm an avid reader. I'm reading a book right now called The Power of the Other, which is really good. I can't think of the author's name. I forget the author's name, but it's called The Power of the Others. And it's about leadership and various styles of leadership. And that relates not just to corporate leadership, but life. You're the leader in your own life. So that's a really great book. I'm always a fan of Neville Goddard, anything personal growth and development. Yeah.
I love that. So, okay. So as far as then, my statement always is your authenticity is your superpower. How would you've already shared so many examples, but I love, as we wrap up, for you to say how you believe that your authenticity in your own life and being who you really are is ultimately been the superpower of your life.
Yeah. Well, again, I throw it back to, I truly do believe that we are the artwork in our own life. That's your superpower, that you actually are the artwork. And so you must show up like the masterpiece you are. And at the risk of sounding cliche, I truly do believe that. And when you embrace that idea, that just like a piece of art, that every piece of art is unique. You are unique. You are the art. And when you show up like the masterpiece that you are, you bring out all those unique characteristics that are authentic and genuine to you.
I love that. I am so thankful for you. And I love that now my people are introduced to you. So let us know, first of all, where can we find you, from the artwork to social media to websites? I'll, of course, link all this in the show notes, but where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram. I have two Instagram accounts. One is the artwork of you, and that's coaching related. And the other is my name, Lori Gouhin, and that's all of my art. And I have two websites as well. Same. LoriGouhin.com is where you can purchase my original art. The artwork of you is where you can find out more about my coaching. And then my podcast is on all major platforms as well as my website. And that's also called The Artwork of You. And I do have on my artwork of you a free download if any of your listeners would be interested. It's a 30 days to success goal planner, and I'm using it myself, and it's really helpful.
I love that. Perfect. So you guys make sure, go follow her. Lori, thank you for being
Thank you.
You've been such an inspiration in my own life, and just from goal setting to masterminding and just growing together. And I'm telling you, there is a powerful, powerful mastermind level of innovation that you can only when you connect with the right like-minded people. Life is too short to tear each other down. And so to get to build each other up and just to come together and collaborate, even when you're in different lanes, is such a gift. And so you guys, as we close, I want to remind you that I love you and I believe in you. And that may sound super crazy because I may not have ever met you, but I know there are people all around the world who hate people for absolutely no reason. So I will choose to love you for no reason until we meet and I find all the reasons there are to love you. So you guys go out and be genuine and keep building a life that you're proud to live. See you guys next week.